So, you think you're all better. You feel great. But inside your immune system, your body's personal security team, is about to get things horribly wrong. Today, we're going to dig into how that team, the one that's supposed to protect you, can suddenly declare war on your own body. And all because of a simple sore throat.
All right, so our story starts with a bug we all know. Group A strep. Yeah, the one that gives you strep throat. But here's the twist. This isn't really about the infection. Nope, this is about the ghost it leaves behind. A really dangerous chain reaction that kicks off long after you think you've won the fight.
And that aftermath has a name: rheumatic fever. Now, the most important thing to get here is that this is not strep throat. Not anymore. It's a full-blown inflammatory firestorm, and it's your own immune system lighting the match. We're talking about a multi-system attack that can go after your heart, your joints, your skin, even your brain.
Okay, so who gets this? Well, rheumatic fever usually picks on kids and teens. The sweet spot is between 5 and 15 years old, and it tends to pop up where strep can spread like wildfire, in overcrowded places. It doesn't really care if you're a boy or girl, although there is one weird exception to that, which we'll get to in just a bit.
So the big question is, how? How in the world does a sore throat turn into this massive body-wide crisis? Well, it all boils down to a classic case of mistaken identity, a huge critical error made by your very own immune system.
Okay, let's break down this miscalculation. Step 1. The strep bacteria gets in. Step 2. Your immune system, right on cue, creates these little soldiers called antibodies to go fight it. But here's the fatal flaw, and this is wild. Parts of the strep bacteria look almost identical to parts of our own heart, joints, and brain. It's like the bacteria is wearing a clever disguise. So the antibodies get confused. They can't tell the difference between the enemy and you. And in a tragic case of friendly fire, they start attacking your own healthy body.
Now, because the symptoms are all over the place, diagnosing rheumatic fever isn't straightforward, so doctors need a set of clues. Think of them like detectives at a crime scene. They have this framework, this checklist of clues to solve the puzzle. It's called the Jones criteria.
And the heart of this whole diagnostic puzzle is a really helpful mnemonic, JONES. Each one of those letters stands for one of the 5 major symptoms, the big smoking gun clues that doctors are searching for.
So, let's start with J for joints. And we're not talking about a little ache here. This is a severe, painful arthritis in multiple joints. But the really weird part, it's migrating. That means the pain literally jumps around. One day it's an agonizingly swollen knee, the next day the knee is better but your ankle is on fire. This moving target pain is a huge red flag, especially because it gets knocked out like almost magically by aspirin.
All right, next up is O, which stands for the heart. Because it's kind of round like an O. And this, right here, is the most serious part of the whole thing. It's called pancarditis. Pan means all, so we're talking about inflammation of the entire heart, every single layer. And the damage here, it can be permanent.
So this attack on the heart happens in 3 ways. First, it hits the outer sac, the pericardium. Then it goes for the heart muscle itself, the myocardium. And finally, and this is the most dangerous part, it attacks the inner lining and the heart's delicate valves. That's the endocardium. This is the kind of damage that doesn't just go away. It can lead to a lifelong condition called rheumatic heart disease.
Okay, on to N, which stands for nodules. What are those? They're just these small, firm little lumps you can find over bony spots like your elbows or knees. The really strange thing about them is that they're totally painless. They don't hurt at all. But finding them is a massive clue that this whole inflammatory mess is going on inside.
E is for a very specific and weird-looking rash called erythema marginatum. First off, it doesn't itch, and it never shows up on your face. It looks kind of like red, wavy rings or snakes on the skin, with a pale center. It's a here today, gone tomorrow kind of rash, and even though it's pretty rare, if a doctor sees it, bells start ringing for rheumatic fever.
And finally, we have S for Sydenham-Chorea. This is what happens when that inflammation gets to the brain. It causes these rapid, jerky, involuntary movements, like in the hands, feet, or face. Remember that weird exception for girls we mentioned earlier? This is it. This symptom is way more common in females. And get this, it has this bizarre seesaw relationship with the joint pain. When one shows up, the other one is usually gone.
So, to officially solve this puzzle and make the diagnosis, doctors need a certain combo of clues. They need either 2 of those major Jones symptoms we just talked about, or 1 major one plus 2 minor clues, like a fever or specific blood test results. But here's the kicker. They also need solid evidence that there was a strep infection to begin with. Without that, you can't connect the dots.
Okay, so the diagnosis is in. Now it's time to fight back. And the treatment plan is basically a war on two fronts. You've got to deal with any leftover bacteria, and you have to calm down the body's out-of-control inflammatory response.
Goal number 1 is pretty straightforward. Wipe out any remaining strep bacteria. The weapon of choice there? Penicillin. Goal number 2 is to get that inflammation under control. For the joint pain, aspirin works great. But if the heart is involved, that's when the big guns come out. Doctors use powerful drugs called corticosteroids to slam the brakes on the immune system and shield that vital organ from more damage.
But here's the thing. Winning this first battle doesn't mean the war is over, not by a long shot. The biggest danger with rheumatic fever is that it can come back. Any new strep infection can trigger the whole thing all over again. And each time it happens, the heart takes another hit, accumulating more and more damage. That's why long-term prevention isn't just an option. It's absolutely everything.
And that brings us to the most crucial strategy of all, something called secondary prevention. What this means is taking a low dose of antibiotics every single day for years, sometimes for decades. The goal isn't to treat an infection that's already there. The goal is to build a permanent shield, to make absolutely sure a new strep infection can't get a foothold and start this whole nightmare over again.
So how long does this go on for? Well, it all depends on how much the heart was affected. If there was no heart involvement at all, maybe you stop at age 21. But if there was some damage to the heart valves, that commitment could last until you're 40 or even for the rest of your life. It's a huge long-term commitment, but it's all about one thing: guarding the heart.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's actually pretty simple, but so important. If you treat a strep throat properly with antibiotics, it's just a sore throat. But if you ignore it, you're leaving the door open for something so much worse. It's a huge reminder that there's really no such thing as a simple infection.
You know, this whole thing is just a mind-blowing example of how the immune system can make one little mistake and cause absolute chaos. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other cases of mistaken identity, what other secrets are our bodies hiding right now?